Hello, I'm Jeanette Keynes from Jewelry Arts Inc. In this video, I'm going to share with you some key concepts about bezel settings that I teach in my Bezel Settings for Faceted Stones workshop.
A lot of what I'm going to be talking about today, here you guys, come over here, please. Where I'm going to be doing the 360. There you go. So, a lot of what I'm going to be teaching you today is not strictly speaking about how to bezel set a faceted stone, because basically any technique is all about the prep. You know, like when we actually set your stones at the end of the day today, it's probably going to happen in like 15 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like that final stage of actually setting the stone, there's very little to do. Everything is about getting the height of the bezel right and make sure the inner bezel is level, and like all those things along the way are the things that make the final result happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So keep that in mind as I'm teaching today, that the actual stone setting part is nothing if you get all the other things right. So what I'm going to be showing you today also is not just like, let's make a bezel and get to the setting, because it's about what's the best, easiest, and most sensible way to approach each of our steps so that at the end we don't get screwed. Because for those of you who have made jewelry before, for those of you who are learning to make jewelry, it's like students tend to focus on the final step, right? Like, well, I want to just go ahead and set. And it's like, don't worry about that. Worry about all the foundational stuff. If you get that right, everything else goes great. If you ignore little steps along the way, basically the jewelry gods are petty and spiteful, and they will smite the fuck out of you. You know what I mean? When you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna. If that sentence goes through your head, just stop and feel the lightning bolt poised above your head. You know what I mean? So that's why, and like why I teach the way that I teach. So just know that if you're chomping at the bit to get to the final step, I'm going to be like, no, no, because that's totally normal. That's like normal and healthy, but I'm going to be all day like, no, look at this first. Okay? So I have here a beautiful illustration of a faceted stone. Of course, there are a million different cuts and shapes and whatever, but this just shows you literally like standard, quote unquote, like this is like a brilliant cut. And it's just important to know, even if you forget all the other terms, the girdle. The girdle is the part that we're going to put our metal around, and that's what we're going to use to hold the stone. So everything we're going to be doing over the course of the day and with the setting is making sure we have adequate height so that when we go to set at the end, I have enough metal to be just above the girdle and enough space so that this point does not touch the bottom of your setting. Okay? Because there are very few things that I can't fix. Going to set a stone when your bezel isn't high enough is not one of those things. So you're going to hear me all day today like, let's check the height of that. Is that we're going to put, no, a little more extra, because again, my job is to get you through, and that's the most common mistake that people make. They're like, oh, I melted the bezel a little bit, but I think it's fine. And then when you get to that final step, unlike most other things in jewelry making, you're just screwed. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, there's things we've done, but there aren't good solutions. So again, you will be bored and hear me tell you like, let's check that. Let's get out the dividers. How high is that? You know what I mean? That's really important. Okay? So when we actually set the stone, like I said, the bezel is going to just clear the girdle right there, and there needs to be a little bit of space at the bottom so that that point doesn't touch. Even if you have a super hard stone like a diamond, if that bottom touches, it can break. It also interferes with the way the light comes back, so it won't look good. You can break your stone. Like, none of those are good things. So the way that you make sure that that doesn't happen, I'm going to use a pair of dividers. You know, dividers with little tools with the two little legs on them, and to measure the height of the stone. The way that we generally ensure that we have enough is to take your dividers and measure the height of your entire stone, top to bottom. Okay, so like you see that, the entire thing, top to bottom, right? You see that height? That is the height that we have to have at the end. So we can't make it that height right now. Right. So in other words, depending on the choice of your piece, like let's say you just learned to fuse and you're gonna fuse your bezel down, you've gotta leave extra to accommodate for the fact that you're probably gonna melt it a little bit and have to do a little bit of sanding, et cetera, okay? So, I mean, I'm just gonna give myself like maybe an extra millimeter or so of height, but that is one of those decisions that you're making. Like, what am I doing with the piece? Is it real simple and I'm just gonna solder it down and therefore I don't need to leave myself that much extra? Or am I fusing the bezel down and then granulating and then this and this and this, and I'm doing all of these things that may contribute to the bezel ending up and being lower, okay? Now, if you start making a piece and you're too generous, next time you can be like, okay, I can dial it back a little bit, but you have to be considering extra, right?